How are you guys all doing today? And welcome back to another quick champion guide. Today we're going to be looking at Jareg, a magic affinity HP champion in the Lizardman faction. He is a epic. We're going to go over his skills, masteries, and artifacts, a few different ways you can build him, where he's useful, where I use him, and just kind of what he's all about. So I've had him for a long time now, and he has been a mainstay in my clan boss team, which, if you can't tell from a running theme with all of my guides here, I like to focus in on my clan boss team. It's a place I put a lot of my energy and time into. I really enjoy that part of the game, and he has been a part of it for a long time now. Though he has a very simple kit, which is really nice because it does make him really easy to be built. He's not an incredibly complicated champion, which I prefer myself. I like very simple, very solid champions, so I've really appreciated having him on my team. So we'll get in here and look. So his A1, Rending Claws, attacks one enemy, 35 base chance of placing a 50% decrease attack. So this is kind of a really important thing to have in your clan boss team. So for those of you that don't know already, decrease attack is one of, if not the most important debuff to have on the clan boss, because it halves his damage. You heard me right, halves his damage. So anytime he has this debuff on him, he does 50% less damage, as it says right here. It's really useful, especially in the later stages of clan boss, brutal, nightmare, ultra nightmare, because he just hits so darn hard that being able to half his damage is so important for trying to get into any later rounds in a fight with him. So it's really useful there. And let's see here, when you book him up, it becomes a 35, 40, 50, and a 60% chance to land, which is pretty reliable. It's not every time, obviously, but he has a pretty good chance of landing it every time he uses A1. And he only has 2 active skills, so you do get to rotate through using your A1 very regularly, which is very important. His A2, also very useful, places a 50% ally protect and a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns when booked on a 3-turn cooldown. Unbooked, it's a 4-turn. So this one is a really good skill. Just ally protect is almost broken against clan boss, and it's really nice to have up as often as possible. So having it on that nice 3-turn cooldown really helps with the sustain of your team, and then increasing defense just always goes a long way. So not only does he have the decreased attack on the boss, he also does the buffing and protecting of allies regularly, which is a really nice combination to have on the same champion. And then his last ability, Sheltering Scales, places a 15% continuous heal buff on an ally for 1 turn whenever an ally loses 20% of their max HP in 1 hit. So I personally feel a little bit conflicted about this skill. I like the idea that he places a healing, like a healing aura on someone whenever they take a large amount of damage. The problem I have with this particular skill is that when someone starts to lose 20% or more of their max HP in 1 hit, it's usually at the point, and at least for me, the point in a clan boss fight when people start getting one-shotted. You don't get a lot of hits that do that much damage until he uses the single out skill that with the stun, the big swing that usually just takes out whoever it hits. So it is nice to help them get back on their feet if it doesn't one-shot, and having the decrease attack on him, it's less likely to just one-shot people. So it is useful at bringing him back in the fight, but it does only heal 15%, so it's kind of a give and take. It does not have a cooldown of any kind, so anytime someone goes below 20% HP, or 20% max HP in 1 hit, it does proc, which is nice. It is very useful. I just don't know if in the current meta with all the different heal defensive champions and stuff we have, I don't know if this is as good as it used to be. It's still reliable, it's still very nice, but personally his A1 and 2 I think are kind of the bread and butter of his kit. The passive is just kind of a nice little bonus that happens here and there, but overall still a really good kit. One thing that is a little different from the last few champions we've been doing guides on, which is unfortunate, but to be expected, is sadly Jareg does need a few books. You can use him without books, but personally he only really becomes useful once you do get books in him. The good part is that he only needs 7 books, so he doesn't require an ungodly amount of books, but only having a 35% chance to land the decrease attack without books, and then the protection being on a 4-turn cooldown does make him not nearly as reliable. So he definitely is a lot better with books, which is an unfortunate change from the last few, but it's the nature of the beast. Just thankfully he doesn't need nearly as many, so that's a good thing. Now we're going to move on to the Masteries. So there's two different ways you can kind of build him here. The first most important thing is you want your War Master. You're going to want to come down from the crit rate, crit damage. I personally went with the Life Drinker. I'm a fan of this one for Clan Boss because you heal a little bit of your damage done when attacking with 50% HP or less. I just like it as a little extra added sustain for later in the Clan Boss fight. You know, when he starts whittling people down, it's kind of nice to have a better chance at bringing them back. But you could safely go with Single Out for extra damage when you have a Clan Boss lower health. And you could probably safely go with Heart of Glory, increases damage inflicted by 5% when attacking with full HP. But this would be more useful when you're building like a shield team, because then your health doesn't really get hit very often, so you are always at full health. More useful there, not as useful normally. It's a little situational, so I don't like to use it too much for Clan Boss. I'd rather just get extra crit damage. And then come down here, bring it down, increases damage inflicted by 6% when attacking targets with higher max HP, which is all the time, considering Clan Boss has millions of HP, is always active. And then Methodical increases damage inflicted by this champion's default skill by 2% each time it is used during battle, stacks across each round in a battle up to 10%. So across the fight with the Clan Boss, the auto attack A1 will move up to an extra 10% damage. Clan Boss, that's really easy to get to, is simply because he's the only enemy to hit, so this will always get there. And in the last one, War Master, 60% chance of inflicting bonus damage. Bonus damage is equal to 10% of target champion's max HP or 4% of target's max HP when attacking bosses. So Clan Boss, I want to say in Nightmare you get around 60, 75,000 extra damage when it procs, something right in there. I forget the exact number. And then over here in the support tree is where it gets a little interesting. So you are going to need accuracy on him since you're trying to land that decrease attack every chance you get. So I went with pinpoint accuracy for the accuracy. I went with charged focus, increases accuracy by 20 when this champion has no skills on cooldown. Really only happens probably on his first turn, but you know, why not? Give him an extra chance at landing that decrease attack right out the gate. And then this is where his build can get a little interesting for the support tree. So I decided myself to come down here for lasting gifts. Has a 30% chance to extend the duration of any buff cast by this champion by 1 turn, which would be the ally protect and the increased defense. And then over here to Sniper increases the chance of placing any debuff from skills or artifacts by 5%, which makes that 60% chance to land the decrease attack to a 65. Obviously you don't need it, it is only a 5% chance, but I want that debuff on the Clan Boss every chance I get and for as long as possible. So for me, this was the obvious choice. The only problem with building him this way, where I get the extended chance at getting the buffs on and the extra chance at placing the debuff, is that I end up with a lot of wasted things in the middle here. So increases value of shields. He doesn't place any shields. Heals, if this does proc, it would only count on that occasional 15% continuous heal, and that's if it even counts towards that. I'm not even convinced it does count towards it. And then there's another heal one. Same thing. I don't know if it even applies to continuous heal since it's a passive buff that sits on the target rather than being a casted ability. So not sure if it gets any benefit from these, but really I just wanted those two lasting gifts and Sniper. I did take Lore of Steel because I do use some really simple sets on him because I'm just trying to get his base stats really high. So this one is nice on him, especially if you're early game and you're running with more simple, gear sets rather than anything complicated. Pretty useful for adding bonus stats. So that's the way I decided to build him here. The other way you could really build him here is to try to come down the right side of this tree to get Master Hexer, the 30% chance to extend the duration of any debuff cast by him, which would give you a bonus chance to keep the decrease attack on the Clan Boss. This would also be a really, really good one. When I built him, I didn't have a lot of supports on my team. I didn't have a lot of tanks and all that kind of buff and stuff going on. So I leaned towards increasing the chance at keeping his defensive bonuses going and the chance at landing the decrease attack rather than going all in for getting the decrease attack on all the time. I think that would be equally as good as what I'm doing. This is just how I decided to go with it. But I don't believe either of these ways is wrong. I would just test it out yourself and see what you like the looks of, what you think you need based on what your team is. This is just kind of a jumping off point, as an idea of what to do. And then we'll move into gear. So I do have a very simple set of gear on him. I have 2 sets of life gear and then 1 set of speed gear, because obviously you do want some speed on him because you want him going as often as you can to try and get those decrease attacks, keep the defensive bonuses going, all that fun stuff. So this is how I decided to do it. I have a kind of a lame ring, but I went with an HP ring, a defense amulet with some bonuses and accuracy, some rolls on crit damage, which doesn't really help, but it was the best amulet I've had for a while, so I went ahead and used it a long time ago, and in some resistance. And then an accuracy banner. The accuracy banner will probably be very important to have on him. I only just recently got a good one for Lizardman, so I finally got my accuracy to 258, and I was sitting at like 210 for a long time, and wondering why I wasn't getting all my decrease attacks on the clan boss. So I finally realized I was sitting too low on the accuracy, so I was able to bring it up just a little bit, and then getting the better banner, I was able to bring it up even higher. So it's right about where I want it. I'd prefer it to be closer to 270, but I think 258 is just fine. Then we'll look at my stats here. So he has 82,956 HP, which is a lot of HP. He's very tanky, and most of that comes from having decent gear. But also, I took the Lore of Steel Mastery, which increases the multiplicative stats that come from the sets. So I get extra HP from the 2 sets here, and then the Mastery, and then extra HP here from these 2 sets and the Mastery. And then I have attack that does not matter. I have 3,095 defense, which is pretty good. I probably would have preferred to have slightly less HP and a little more defense, but it probably evens out. It's pretty solid. He's usually the last to die. He's very tanky this way. He is a little slow, sitting at 148. I would have really liked to have gotten him closer to like 170. 200 would have been amazing. I just have not gotten the gear for that. But even sitting down here at 148, he has been very reliable and a huge benefit to my team. So if you can't pull out the big numbers in speed, don't stress it too much. If you have him doing his job, doing the debuffs, doing the buffs, doing all the things you need, I think being a little on the slower side is okay. Obviously try to get higher than I have here, but do what you can. Then he has little crit rate, little crit damage, not very important, not what he's here for. Then 84 resist, again, not very much. The only debuff to resist in clan boss is the stun, and me personally, I have a debuff cleanser, so I don't have to worry about the resistance. That would be the Doom Priest I just recently did a video on. So I don't really worry about resistance too much in my clan boss team. And then, again, the accuracy at 258. Finally got it up to where I want it, and it's been a lot more reliable since I got it there rather than sitting at the low 200s. But that is how I have him built. But yeah, that is Jareg. He has been amazing. He's been super useful, really good at keeping the clan boss from killing people, keeping the damage down, buffing teammates, doing all that fun stuff. So he's a really good staple for a clan boss team. You can use him outside of that. He'd be really good in dungeons, having the decrease attack. He'd, keep the dungeon bosses from doing as much damage. I would say his weak points would probably be Fire Knight and arena teams. I'm sure there's a way to make him useful there, but just for me personally, I don't see strong uses for him in Fire Knight and Arena. He just doesn't really have a kit built very well for Arena, and he would be useful in Fire Knight with the decrease attack, but personally, I would try to be getting people with better, multi-hit A1s, having only a single hit. I just don't think that's really the place for him, but Dragon, Ice Golem, Potion Keeps, campaign missions, anywhere else, I think he would be perfectly reliable. And one last thing I wanted to go through a little bit with the artifacts is there's plenty of ways you could build him. So obviously I showed you mine, which is just stacking stats and nothing too crazy here, combining it with the Lore of Steel Mastery. But there's plenty of sets you could use. Let's take a look in through here. So obviously defensive set would be good, more speed would be good. Yeah, critical rate and damage doesn't serve much purpose. You could be using some accuracy sets here. Lifesteal would be perfectly fine on him. I personally don't really need the lifesteal set because of having the healer and him having a little built-in heals. But you could go lifesteal set if you were having trouble keeping everybody alive and healed. He'd be a good option for that. What else we got here? Regeneration could be kind of fun. Just having more ways for him to regen all of his health. I don't have very many good pieces of it, so it's not really the set for me, but I think it would be a viable option on him. Outside of Clan Boss, I think the shield set could be really good on him. Seeing that Clan Boss is kind of his specialty, I would lean away from it a little bit, but if you have a really good Clan Boss team and you're looking for some support in dungeons, I think the shield set could be kind of a fun one to use, considering how high you can stack his health fairly easily, so that would be kind of an interesting one to try. Relentless would be good all the time, more chances at the A1, more chances to get decreased attack, so that's a pretty good option too. Savage wouldn't be great. Stun set's useless. If you don't really have poisoners, you could always try some toxic set just to get a little more poisons going on in the Clan Boss. I myself use main poisoners, so I don't really need this, but it's definitely an option. Chance to counterattack could be useful because he would counterattack with the A1 for some increased chances at landing more decreased attacks, so that's a viable one there. Avenging, I don't think the Clan Boss crits very much or very often, so personally, if you're going to use either of those, I'd go with Retaliation. Stalwart would be another good one. 30% less damage taken from AoEs. It'd be a good one just to slow down the damage he takes and keep the Clan Boss from adding up damage on him. Reflex wouldn't be all that important on him. Immortal set would be another good one. 15% HP, heals by 3% every turn. More health, more regen, never a bad thing. The only one I'd add here is the Perception set could be really good on him. At some point, I may end up trying to get some more pieces and swap around and put him in Perception for the 40 accuracy and 5% speed. But for now, I have him set up kind of how I like him, so I'm not sure if I'm going to move to it, but Perception would be a really good set on him. He could also be another fun option for the Guardian set if you end up with a lot of pieces. That's what I use in my Doom Priest build. If you've seen the last video, that's what she has, and I'm actually really liking that set. It worked really well on her, and it's still working really well on her, and I feel like he could be another very good candidate for that. But that is about it for the different gear sets you could try and use for him, at least that I see. If you have another idea, drop it down in the comments. I'd love to know what kind of ideas you have for building him. But that's how I've done it, and that's my ideas around him. But he's been a big help. I've really enjoyed having him. I've had him for a long time, and he is still used to today. So that is all, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the guide. I hope it was able to help you, give you some ideas on how to build your Jareg, and I wish you the best. You all have a good one. Bye.